Okay, continuing on with brain features. Next up, the cerebellum. That's a third major region of the brain, and that is located posterior, inferior portion of the brain. Kind of looks like a mini brain that's flattened out and has smaller wrinkles. So right there, I'm highlighting together the various portions of the cerebellum. And it's divided up into different regions that you guys don't actually have to learn. So, but all of everything you see there in blue, that consists of the cerebellum. Okay, let me deselect all of that. And I do want to point out to you, let me rotate this around, let me deselect that. Okay. All right, so, and here's your brain stem over in here. So we're looking at the brain from an anterior view. And if I highlight right there and right there, you've got, that's an area of the cerebellum that forms a connection with the brain stem right in here and also over in here. So it almost has kind of a flattish appearance, and you have myelinated axons in there which are crossing over between the brain stem and the cerebellum. And those areas are called the cerebellar peduncles. They kind of look like pedals on a bicycle, or shoe prints. They're kind of flattened out there. So that's where those are located. Let me deselect all of those. Let me highlight one side of the cerebellum here and hide it. And notice when we cut it open, if we zoom in on the cerebellum has these darker areas colored in gray. That's gray matter of the cerebellum. Okay, so you have cell bodies of neurons located in that area. And then the lighter colored areas are called the arbor vitae, which means tree of life, and that is the white matter areas of the cerebellum. So in there, where you have white matter, you've got myelinated axons that are passing through there. And those myelinated axons end up over in here. This is where you have your cerebellar peduncles that are connecting into the brainstem. See how over here on the brainstem you've got this flattish area? That's where the cerebellar peduncles are connecting or interfacing there with the brainstem, right in there in that little flattened off area. Almost looks like it's been sliced. Okay, so that's your cerebellum. Let me zoom out here. Now let's take a look at the brainstem itself, and I am going to get rid of the temporal lobe there. Well, actually that took away the whole cerebrum, and I'm going to highlight that. That is a structure called the hippocampus. That's an emotional area of the brain as well. It's part of your limbic system of the brain involved in emotions. I'm going to hide that. And then I'm also going to dissect off some of these other structures. I'm going to leave that one on there though. Goodbye, 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 goodbye. All right, and I'm also going to strip off the cerebellum for now. That's going to leave us with our brainstem. So we're looking at this from a side view, and let me highlight some things for you. So we're going to go with how your textbook is designating the borders between the different parts of the brain. So we said earlier that up in here, you know, this is part of the diencephalon. You have the thalamus, egg-shaped structure on the left and the right, deep down inside here. And then everything, let me erase that. Everything from here on down represents part of the brainstem. This upper portion up in here is called the midbrain. Or another name for that is mesencephalon. Okay, and just below there, right in here, you have a section of the brainstem called the pons. And then when you go below the pons, down in here, this area is called the medulla oblongata. So the midbrain is the most superior portion. The pons is in the center. Medulla oblongata is in the lower area. Okay. That's not too hard. The pons is pretty easy to find because it has that swollen area. Come on, pen, go off. The pons is fatter and sticks out. So that's the pons, and then you know the parts of the brainstem that are above the pons or the midbrain or the mesencephalon. And if you go beneath there, you're in the medulla oblongata. And the brainstem, of course, is connecting the cerebrum up in here to the spinal cord that's down lower. All right, if we rotate our brainstem around, there is a feature on the midbrain. So up in here, do you see right there, right there, right there, and right there? Oops, right there. Hang on, let me, that's the right half of the corpus callosum. Let me strip that off. All right, so that little bump right there, if you remember, so that's on the back side of the diencephalon, so that's the pineal gland. Okay, so I'm going to deselect that. Let's zoom in a little closer. So you got a little bump right there, a bump right there, a bump right there, and a bump right there. Those 4 bumps make up what is called the corpora quadrigemina. And each of those bumps, the top 2 are called superior colliculi. The bottom 2 are called the inferior colliculi. You don't have to know that. But those are features on the posterior side of the mesencephalon or your midbrain. And there are cell bodies of neurons in there, and they're actually involved in your visual and auditory reflexes. So like if you think you see something over on the right and you turn your head to the right to see, like if something's fluttering in the corner of your eye over here and you turn your head to the right, that's a visual reflex. So the neurons in the corpora quadrigemina are making that happen without you even really having to think about it. That's a reflex. It's something that just happens without your cerebrum up here, the cerebral cortex, having to get involved. Or if you heard a sound over here on the left-hand side and you snap your head around to see what that sound is, you have neurons in the corpora quadrigemina that are involved in those reflexes. Okay, I'm actually going to stop this video clip here, and on the next one what I'll do, I'm going to cover the fluid-filled spaces of the brain. Those are called the ventricles, and I'm also going to cover the meninges. Those are protective coverings around the brain and spinal cord as well.